but you're making me have a second question because
Sure.
earlier you said God is alive and plasmic. And
Yes.
therefore, Buddha and the archangel that you saw in the space don't exist because God was everything. So,
Yeah.
how do you explain Jesus if you had that perspective with the Buddha and also with the archangel?
Well, what I was saying is because I would not have recognized Buddha as a religious person. Okay. So if he did come into the room, I wouldn't have recognized that. But how I'm going to recognize is I knew about Archangel Michael and I darn well knew about Jesus because I had a picture of him. So you are going to create exactly what you know and what you have recognized. Even if Buddha came in, I probably wouldn't have recognized because I don't even think it would have frequency wise would even be able to come in because I would not have been able to bring that frequency in.
So, you're saying that whatever we're seeing is an illusion based on the creation of our own minds. So, tell us what the reality is then.
Well, the reality is,
My guest today is Virginia Drake, who had a near death experience in 1998 as a result of a heart attack. And from that distinct place on the other side, she was able to delineate a specific energy field between her physical body and her soul body. And she realized the physical body was not the real thing. She was also brought up very religious and has a biblical background and has discovered that there is a Bible within the Bible, and we're going to learn about that today. So, Virginia, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
thank you. Thank you so much. I really met with the minute we haven't known each other, maybe about what, 3 or 4 minutes or five. But when souls meet souls, there's no words to explain that experience. And if people would really get out of their flesh, and this is what you're going to hear, because the flesh is what has entrapped us to not to see the real truth of the Holy Spirit. And when I say the Holy Spirit, you can say plasma, you can say supernatural. I don't care because words are just labels. But the real deal is this.
It
And if
is.
the audience are really ready to feel this, between you and I, when two or more gather, we touch the world.
Right.
And that's all I came in here to do is to touch the world. But it touches me first so I can illuminate that feeling of truth.
Beautiful. Oh, so beautifully said. Thank you for that. What a great way to open and start today.
Well, I feel it. I mean, but I've been up a lot with this blood moon, like I told you. And I do have my blood pressure, because I've had 2 heart attacks and 2 strokes. And so you kind of go like this. But all that is to me is to make me learn to level because all this is blood pressure is not a pressure, it's the pressure within the soul that's trying to get my attention. So I just use that to, if I'm feeling it, I check it so I can learn how to get in it and release it.
So if you're watching right now and you're curious about the full moon she's talking about, these videos live in perpetuity. We are in March of 2025 and she's talking about the blood moon on the 14th of March today. So she can really feel that energy, which is so unique.
It was in my bedroom. My cat was feeling it because he's also very energetic. And I mean, I remember this kind of moon probably about 15 years ago. And I was sleeping in there because that's my bedroom. But my foot touched the moon one night and I felt it generate, just went all the way through my body. It woke me up. That was the same kind of charge that I saw. I think it was 50. I can't tell you what dates because I don't live in time. I live in experiences. So
Sure.
the experience, and I remember feeling this last night. I couldn't sleep. I walked around. I even went outside at 3 o'clock in the morning and saying, okay, what is it? And I'm not seeing a blood moon at all, but I'm seeing some figures and stuff. And I thought, this has been changing. This is going to change. This is literally like an angle has been oppositely moved over. So, and that's why it is angles in your your body is like that. You have angles. That's why they would call them angels, but they're really angles. for me, this is what it means, is that you're angling into a different light connection. And
Yeah.
we're all moving around, and you're going to see a lot of people going to feel very, very odd. And then you've got Wi-Fi on top of this. So you've got to understand we've been inundated with energy all the time. Now I'm 73. So in the 50s, we didn't have all of this. And as you grow into it, then that phone, I can't touch my phone. I have to be very far away from it. Wi-Fi is pretty far away from me, but I still can feel it. But today I felt it almost 4 or 5 times more.
Wow. Well, and I think everybody who's watching is going to learn that as people have near death experiences, they usually come back with sensitivities and abilities they didn't have before. And you are very energetically attuned. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about what your life was like before you had this near death experience? Who was Virginia then?
Okay, well, I wasn't Virginia, I was Jenny because
Okay.
yeah, and because I never went in it. I never did Virginia until I had my practice. And that's when Spirit said, you need to now grow up into the word of the name Virginia, because I'd always been Jenny. But that's a little bit, because those are things that you have to learn to listen to the Holy Spirit or the supernatural, because it's talking to us all the time. So what happened to me is I had several things that happened. First of all, was my father's dying at the age of 16, but I sat and watched him die at the age of 11. And I had watched some horrible, horrible things. They experimented on my father. Now that was in 1960s, okay? He died in 1968. And back then he had melanoma. And the doctors had never seen melanoma. Now we have the University of Kentucky, which is a big university teaching college, or it's now well, it was a university, I guess then too. But my father had a bill in another hospital over $100,000 in 1960s. There's no way that my father worried so massively that we would lose our house, we only had one car. So he was really, he was fooled. And so he accepted an experimentation. So UK picked him up, took out the bills and put him in the hospital, and they did horrendous things to him and another young girl of 13. Now, I look back at that as a little girl. Uh, they didn't talk about death. My father had his eye removed, the back of his brain was removed. He could, and then they left him at our house. He almost killed my mother and I one night. I go back to this trauma because I can sit right in here. This has happened in here because this is the house that I lived in since I've been 8 years old. So, but all of this was traumatic, and I didn't realize how traumatic I was. And then I had been molested on top of that. And you have every one of your audiences, all of them are going to go through all of these different, processes, and that's what I call it, processing. So I remember watching my father going through what he went through. And I remember a little girl of almost 16 standing in the hallway of a hospital saying, somebody needs to help us. And they wouldn't talk about his death. He was going to die. I mean, this man is not going to make it. So I remember I had this last moment with my dad before he was moved to the nursing home. And he said, he had one eye, and he was looking at me because he really had a hard time looking at me and recognizing who I really was. And he said something, and I said, well, when you get out, we're going to get fish. And I thought, that was the dumbest thing you've ever said in your life. He's not gonna, so I lived in that statement, not realizing that statement was going to be a very big statement later on in my life, because everything that I'm experiencing here is who I do now. I work with people who are ready to cross over. I see some of the most horrendous deaths you'll ever see, but I'm very aware how to do it, because I experienced it as a child, but I experienced it through a very bad experience. And when I had my near-death experience that I remembered in 1998, life wasn't like that at all. The soul wasn't like that at all. It was the most miraculous. It was, well, it was miraculous. because the week before that heart attack, I was sitting in my house. We had, it was June, it was, I think, a little bit of May, it was at the end of May. And I'd been out in the garden, and my school had, already closed down. I'm kind of laying back thinking, thank God school's over, And I just sat down. I came into the the den, and this man is talking on the, television. We had six at the time. I look back at that. And I'm just sitting there, and he's talking about his heart transplant. And I think, wow. And he looked like, I remember thinking, God, he looks like he's about 90 years old, and he had oxygen. And he just kept saying, don't get a heart transplant. And I kept thinking, and it was being directed straight to me. That's what it felt like. Don't. And then he would come into the screen. I thought, now that is really freaky. You know, I've had experiences, but like with ghosts and stuff, but I never had that kind. And he kept leaning over, and finally he just leaned over and said, don't get a heart transplant. And I just thought, oh my. So I raised my hand and I said, oh, I'm not going to get a heart transplant. I'm 46 years old. I walk 4 miles a day. I'm a happy woman. I've got it all, blah, blah, blah. The next week I'm looking at one. And I thought, wait a minute, I did not take the heart transplant. I remembered it very clearly, but that was the most profound 3 days in my hospital room that I've ever had. I had a visitation of Archangel Michael. Now you're going to understand. I'm going to recognize him because I've been trained and programmed to this. So a lot of people ask me, they said, well, what if Buddha had come in? I wouldn't have recognized Buddha because I did not have that understanding of Buddha. Now, if Buddha came in here today, I know exactly, because I'm not looking for Buddha. I already know that the Spirit of God does not have a characterization. It's real, it's alive, and it's plasmic. So, but I'm looking at all that, and then I had the most profound, there was angels coming in. I had Archangel Michael would be out in the, over the windows. I mean, I was in a room, I was on the floor, third floor, and he would go up to the 6th floor, and I thought, and I couldn't even go like that and look up, and I thought, he's up there. And then when he came back down, he came down with a lot of force, and he said, it's time for you to wake up. And I thought, oh my God, I thought they were supposed to be nice. I thought they were supposed to be really nice. He was not nice. He was very firm. He was very exact. And then I went into another state of mind that there was the angels starting to come in, and they were talking. And these would be angels that I would recognize because of the way I had been trained and programmed. This is what I try to tell, because all this is energy. This is everything of our intelligence that puts that out to let us see the truth in front of us, because we really don't know what the truth is. We only know what the imagery that we have been given. So I had to look at all of this because it was really, it's a real mind. It wraps your mind around, because I was a scientist. I had a background in BS degree, and I was a teacher. So I was really trying to struggle with what all this is going on in here. And then I had a lady in the room with me that was, I think she was probably older. She was in the process of dying. I did not see her. I could not see her. I could feel her just from breathing. I mean, and it's like an ICU kind of thing, but we were in there together because I was in a very, very small, do I need to, okay. Uh, no, it was a small room. So, but I remember I could feel her, but I was having all of this going on. And there was all kinds of stuff going on, that like when Archangel Michael came in, I remember looking in the corner, and there was like a little beam of light, just like a little pin light. And it kept getting bigger. And I thought, oh, bad drugs, bad drugs. I'm seeing these lights and things going off that I don't even understand what this is. So I'm trying to wrap my mind out. And then this woman over here. So this is kind of it's chaotic, but there's two worlds. You're in the chaotic world, and then you're in the supernatural world. And it all doesn't make sense because you've never really been there to understand how it is. So the lady, about 3 o'clock that night, a man came in, And I knew it was a man. I thought it was her son. And you got to remember, I was a teacher. So he starts talking to his mother, and he's the National Geographic narrator. That's what it sounded like. And I thought, no, that can't be. And then, you know, because that's what you listen to as a teacher. That's all. And I kept thinking, he is the National Geographic narrator. So you're having that over here, and you're having this over here. And I'm thinking, bad drugs. They've overdosed me. I don't know this, you know, because it's a different kind of world. And so I remember she did pass. And I heard the commotion. I heard him leave and everything. So the nurse came in, and you got to understand that was in the 80s. That is in 1990. No, it was 1998. So you could get away with the HEPA laws or whatever. That nurse came in, and I said, did she pass? And she said, yes, like that. I said, was that her son? And she said, oh yeah. I said, he sounded just like the National Geographic narrator. She said, that was him. He just flew in from California. And I went, oh no. I knew immediately that was real. So if that was real, what went over here was just as real. And it was like Spirit said, I had to show you both sides so you would even understand what a narrow road meant, how that really is that you got it, you got your foot over here as much as you got you over here, but we are trained more to the one that we have been recognized and are programmed to. So that took me to a whole new world of, you know, still, I mean, I was trying to wrap my mind out. And then here comes the nurses. Now, they told me when I got into that hospital, they said, do not move, because I had a severe heart attack. I mean, I was 46 years old, and all these nurses were pretty much my age. Okay. So there was a lot you could feel, you know, I was always intuitive, always. I could see their faces. They're horrified. And I even told nurses, I used to work with nurses a lot. I said, change your face. Because I said, I could see them going, you know, you could feel it too. So I thought, am I dying? What's going on? So they came in, and I asked her, I said, we knew that that lady had passed. And then she told me that. It took me to another level of, oh my God, what's happened here? Because I went through a period right after that I realized I wasn't probably, well, they told me if I did not get the heart transplant, I would have 6 months to live. And you kind of go, I'm 46 years old, and you go through that. I'm not going to see my children. I mean, I went through a real state. I called friends up that I would never have ever called them, told them I'm sorry. You know, it scared them all because I called them, said, you know, I'm going to die in 6 months. I mean, I was really, and also I had studied to be an actress. So you don't think I'm not going to tune in onto that acting ability that I look back at me, and I thought I was just so distraught. Why are you gonna, how do you hear that you've had a near death, or you're dying at 46, that yesterday you were perfect, today you're here? It jolts you into a whole different kind of reality. So that next day, the nurses came in, and they said, you know, I was told you cannot get out of that bed. A bed pan will have to come for you, or whatever you need, you got to tell, but you cannot. Because back then they had a sandbag that they put in, because I did a heart cath, and I did have a stent. So it was there, so I couldn't even move at all. And so it was like, okay, I can't move. But here these two nurses are coming in, and they said, we're going to take you up to the third or fourth, you know, floor. And what you're going to do is you're going to get on the stress, you know, we're going to stress you out to see if your heart. And I thought, oh my God, they're going to kill me. They're going to kill me. What they told me, I can't even get in, you know, out of the bed, but now they're going to put me under, you know. I thought, oh my God. I was like flipped. But the one thing about that doctor that was in that operating room with me is there was a lot of things that happened in that. And this is why I'm coming back to him, is because he had Kohan shoes. I don't know if you know what Kohan shoes are. Kohan shoes
Yeah.
my day was quite expensive, and I wore them. And when I was laying on the bed for them to do my heart cath, I could also see his shoes underneath the bed on the table. So, but I remember thinking, why? And he had a pen in his pocket, and he bent down, and the pen, went into slow mo, went down, and I could see the pen and his shoes. And so the next day, when I was asking the nurses what was going on, I'd had a stent and everything, and I said, "Did he have Cohan shoes?" And the nurse said, "Yes." "How do you know?" I said, "I saw them." I said, "Did he also have it?" Because I'm really going like, how does that work? Because I'm trying to figure it out. She said, "So you saw his shoes?" And I said, "And the pen that he dropped out of his pocket." She said, "You're kidding." So they're going like this. They already knew that there's something not quite resonating here. This is different. And the way I said I did not want that heart transplant. And you could feel the room when I said, no, I don't want a heart transplant. I was willing to die for it. And then they said, you have 6 months to live. So the next day when they were coming in, they said, we're going to take you up and you're going to do a stress test. And I thought, they're going to kill me. But as those nurses were working with me, the oxygen tank slipped off and fell in my shoulder. I said, they are really trying to kill me. They were so upset. I remember the women, oh, we're so sorry, we're sorry, because but everything happens for a reason. That happens that way, because I kept thinking, oh man. Now, remember, as they were wheeling me into the elevator, there was another nurse in there with me. And she was already in there. And I remember she turned around and she put her hand on my hand and said, touch me. And I said, I'm dying. And I mean that I really was. I've got 6 months to live. And the other two nurses, and they were looking at her and they looked at each other. But you could tell that there was a conversation that I knew there was something going on, but I wasn't involved in that. So, and I just went on, I said, okay. And I just kind of touched her hand. We went up, and the doctor's up there, and he's got his Kohan shoes, and he's writing down his notes and everything. And the two nurses go like this. And I thought, what do they mean? And they were putting everything on, getting ready for the stress test. And they kept doing this. And I thought, what are they asking me to do? Because I'm scared. And I want you to understand this one, I was terrified because I thought I'm going to get on there and I'm just going to crash right there and they're going to watch me die. That's what I thought. So I remember getting on. Now you got to remember, I was already athletic. So I was walking 3 and 4 miles a day and then going up and being a teacher and all with the kids and all of that. So I remember getting on and it was like real first, it was like, ooh, okay, okay, no stress, no pain. That's when I found out you don't die, that you really can expand beyond yourself. And there is worlds beyond that you don't even understand that you can just tap in. I got really good on that test. It was like, I feel like I won. I came back into myself, is what it is. My soul came back in and I could move. Oh, it was just incredible. And I remember he almost felt like he was mad about it. He said, take her off, get her undone, take her down to her room. And I thought he was very harsh as a cardiologist. I felt like he was very harsh. And I thought, but the nurses were excited. They were like this. That was so good. And I thought, well, I could have almost died. I wasn't really seeing what was really going on. But when I went back into that room, my husband was in there. There was two other doctors in there. My cardiologist had gotten down there, and there was another person that was about the hospital. I don't know if they thought I was going to sue them. I don't know, because it was different. And they were all these men standing in a circle talking about me, but not asking me anything or even questioning anything. And I remember I was really angry about it. So I raised up and I said, well, the way I look at it, it is a miraculous healing. And I just laid back down because I was afraid I was going to have another heart attack for doing that. Because my cardiologist said, yes, she's had shocked heart. And I thought, what is shocked heart? That my heart came back. it was damaged to what they told me, you need a heart transplant. And then the next day, my heart is completely healed. It does have a stent. I did have that. But now you got to big things. You got to think, well, you just told her she need a heart transplant. And now she's walking. And the next, I walked out 3 days later. So I had a lot to think about. I was already on summer break, June the 2nd. And I took 3 months to literally question what happened. I didn't talk to anybody. It changed my whole perspective on life, period. I didn't, when my friends would come in to check on me or, I would just start crying because when I would see them, I didn't see them anymore in their flesh. I saw them in their souls. And that was very disturbing in some ways because you saw where their sadness was or their shadow was. It was different. And I wouldn't talk to too many people because it was so different. And then I retired at the age of 50. Spirit told me one day I was going into school and I heard it as plain as day, you need to quit your job now and you need to serve only me. And I pulled in, went into the nun and I said, she said, are you leaving? I said, not right away, but I'm not going to, don't invite me to come back. I'm not coming back after next year. So I stayed out, there, but I had so many, I told her, I said, I need to get off when I need to. I worked in a Catholic school and it was real demanding. And there were some things in there that wasn't spiritually out of balance. Okay. I love God and I love spirit and I love my church, but that also changed everything about church, about how to be, because in that process of me really growing up to be me and to really recognizing myself, I found out my husband had been molested by a priest. And when you see that, and the priest, I didn't know him personally. I knew about him. And I will say Father Wood, because this man came through my door in the bathroom when I was sitting on the toilet. And everybody think it's funny, but it's also like, what the heck? Who is this guy? Recognized him. And he said to me telepathically, I can't move on because Ron will not forgive him. And I said, oh, no, no, no. It has nothing to do with Ron. You haven't forgiven yourself because you did not serve God the way you were supposed to serve God. And he was so afraid he was going to go to hell. And I said, first of all, you better look at all of that. Now, my husband.
So wait a minute, I want to make sure I'm understanding this. So when you had the experience because it almost sounded like it was before, because you talked about the molestation with him and your husband and then understanding that, and then him coming to your door, you weren't talking about him coming to your door when you were using the bathroom in person, you were talking about in spirit, correct? Because I want to make sure that everybody's understanding the delineation of that part.
Yeah, he walked right because I had not had any experiences like that. I mean, I'd had some of these experiences in the hospital, and during that year that I took off 2000. I walked out of school, out of a job, everything, and I stayed in my house, in my family for 5 years. But I was trained by the highest of spirits. You can't, and that's how it was. I mean, this was new for me. So I was seeing shadows. I was seeing things that would be coming in. I had visitation, but I'd never been sitting on the toilet.
Right, right.
Priest walk, and I mean, I recognized. I mean, I saw him walk through that door. I saw him, and it's frightened me. And I'm not going to say it didn't. It frightened me at first. I thought, why? How does that work? And so he's turned around. He looked right at me, and I mean, but that our two souls were so connected. That's why telepathically he showed me exactly what he did to my husband.
Oh, that's how you found out. You're okay. Now I understand it all. Before we go any further on this conversation, can we go back to your near-death experience? I want to ask you a few questions about it.
Absolutely.
Is that okay? All right. So, Virginia, you're in this hospital and you're having these different procedures done to you. And It sounds like when they said your heart was shocked and damaged, so they probably brought you back with a defibrillator, I'm guessing.
No, they didn't. I have never, no, it wasn't about that shocked heart. My heart just stopped. It was paralyzed. That's what I assumed because I was talking to them all of that when that was going on. What I was doing is coming out of my body, going out and turn around and seeing myself down. Then I'd come back in, then I'd go back out. So I,
Okay,
yeah, it was a, everybody says, well, that's out of body. No, it is out. I was dead, but I was very much alive here. And I,
sure,
yeah, and I was getting ready to, I mean, I got to view myself like I'd be in a corner watching myself, them working on me. And I could think,
sure.
"Yeah, how does that work? Because I'm really trying to figure that out. And I remember one part of it, I went down into my body and I was seeing through my solar plexus. And I was seeing the nurses running that back, yelling, "Oh my God." And it's like real slow mo. And I'm thinking, how can I see in my solar plexus and I see these people? Because I'm still, I don't know if anybody, I haven't heard too many NDEs saying this, but I was seeing both worlds. I could see, but I knew this didn't match. I can't see through my solar plexus. So how in the world am I seeing through and I knew I was in my solar plexus because I was in my stomach. Like, so, these are profound experiences that you can't, there's nothing you can say, but it happens.
Sure. So you're energetically in both of these places. You're seeing how your body is a different energy field than your soul. Were there some things that you understood then from that soul level? Because you've alluded to this, but can you tell us what you understood from that perspective that you had not previously understood?
Well, everything is energy. Everything. Like when I said, that's how I can recognize if I'm going into something when the energy starts slowing down. Really, what you're doing is you're going really fast, but everything slows down because you're going so fast. And it's a very different kind of feeling, but immediately, like I know I'm in plasma, like it feels like you're going through water. But when you're new in this, you feel like these waves are going. I mean, I could see waves going through people and I thought, that just, and then especially if I was over here watching them working on me, I think, is that me? You know, but you're not being able to talk. It's all done telepathically and nobody can see you. They're working and diligently trying to save you. And you're going, why aren't they looking at me? Because it doesn't make sense. So, but after you get really good at this and you really practice, yeah, you can walk through walls. You can go into particles. Um, it's the most amazing thing I've ever done in my life. And I've done some amazing things as a human being, but I just want people to know it can be done. I'm not special. We're all special. We're all the ones that came in here to choose to create another world. And it's really not a world, it's an energy field.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. So why do you think during that experience, you only stayed in that room and you didn't leave it to go to another realm, another dimension, and through the tunnel, all those things
I
that,
did I did that when I was in the ambulance. I literally walked out of, I was riding in the ambulance and everything got really dark. And I mean, really dark. And I thought, well, they should have the lights on. Why aren't they got the lights on? And that's when you leave your body. And I walked right through the side of the ambulance and I rode by it. I mean, it was like I was driving right next to it. And I thought, that's not possible. You can't be riding next to the ambulance when you're in the ambulance because you could. Have you ever seen the movie Ghost?
yes,
You know how the guy is on the train and he puts his head in the train?
yes,
Exactly what it feels like. Exactly. But you could maneuver it right up, and I could see the driver at the ambulance. I thought, now you cannot be. But it felt like I was going through water or plasma, and we were flying, that you could hear the noise of the ambulance, but it wasn't the same kind of sound. It was a different resonance that's came in. And then, but when this is why I knew I was out of my body because Then when I got to the, the emergency room in Lexington, they pulled the gurney out. And when its wheels went and hit the road, it jarred me back into my body. So I'm thinking, oh, no, look, wait a minute. And then you don't feel free about it. You really are encased. And I remember thinking there's a series called ER. It was a series, ER. And there's a scene where they're going through, somebody's laying down and all the lights are going off. Well, it's just like ER. It's just like ER. These are things you're going to attach to that you will have tried to find, clarity of where you are. So you have all of these different triggers that you will do. Yeah, but when I went in, I couldn't talk because the pain was so severely, it was like an anaconda had squeezed me in, and then an elephant sat on top of me. So I couldn't hardly talk. In fact, I didn't. I think my friends came in. I saw my three friends. They came straight out from school because we were still in summer break. That's when we were all there. And we had to do my eyes, like do one for yes, do two for two, no. But I knew those are the three women that I would never ever, if I was dying, that's what I knew. And those were going to be the only three people I will ever see ever again.
Yeah, I bet that would feel like that. So did you happen to look at your spirit body? I know that you were very familiar with what your physical body looked like, but did you happen to glance and see any perspective of what the spirit body looked like?
No, because I was still trying to figure it out from the flesh end of it. And but now I can get in the mirror because I've practiced enough, and I can just disappear and I can see my spirit. And
What
my
does your spirit look like when you can see it there?
Oh, well, a lot of times it's just white because if you understand, this is where a lot of people, because I've always seen aura. I didn't know that when people had some blue around them or orange around them or this was that. I thought everybody saw that. My mother and I could see it. But my mother always said to me, do not tell anyone, because I saw my father after he died. So and back in the 60s, you didn't tell somebody you could see colors around them or I saw my dad, they would be freaked out. So my mother scared me about this because she was very much like me, but she did not accept this. She was very afraid of it because it was not a good thing in the 60s for her. But I remember there'd be days she said, my friend's getting ready to call me and the phone would ring. And I thought, that is really good. She said, you need to practice that. That's all she would say. But I thought, what is she talking about? Like that. Yeah, I've had a lot of experiences in this house. And this house will speak. When I have clients that come in, my house will speak. And they say, how does that work? Because when we hit something, it does yes and no, or where it is deep in the walls. I know where that healing needs to take place in somebody's body. And they say, how do you know? I said, because it's toned. The tone will go through the house, then I will under recognize where the tone is inside the body. That's how I've been trained to be able to see it through sound. But I was like that as a teacher too. I could see children's aura all the time.
Wow. So it sounds like you came back with a lot of gifts. So if I understand you correctly, you came back with a very sensitive energy. You're sensitive now to energetic things like a full moon or animals or people and what they're doing. You have a sense about the energy.
Trees talk.
Trees. Oh, trees. So magical trees are.
Yeah.
You also have a sense about seeing people's auras. You
Yes.
also mentioned that you have the ability to uncover energetically things within people's bodies. So I would call that maybe a medical intuitive. But you
Yes.
said something in the very beginning that was very intriguing to me. And you said that you were born and raised religious
Yes.
and you followed the Bible, but you uncovered a Bible within the Bible.
Yes.
And I would love to hear a little bit about what that means.
Well, I was raised Baptist and then
Okay.
converted to being a Catholic because my father became a Catholic. And because when he was dying in the process, no minister would come to our house. because they were afraid to get cancer. And everybody said, oh, that's not true. Yes, in the 60s, they didn't know what cancer. They thought you got a virus. That's what they told my father. It was a virus, and people were afraid they'd get it. So he brought in a priest that would came in every Saturday. So I learned the Cathology, but what I saw as a Baptist, I saw the Bible because I knew the Bible. And when I came out of my near-death experience in 1998, Jesus came to me for 18 months. And he looked exactly like my bulletin board God or Jesus. I was the only one that had a Jesus that smiled. So I had a Jesus that smiled. And I guess it's now I would say, smile, Jesus loves you, for the kids. That was the bulletin board. I remember when he walked into the room, it was like he walked through a veil or a curtain. And I looked, I said, oh my God, it's the same Jesus that I saw on my bulletin board. He was gorgeous. He was a beautiful man. And I thought, if I got this man that everybody talks to, and he's coming in to sit with me, I want to ask him every question I can. And what I did is I asked him, I said, how did they recognize you? How do they know that that's you? He said, the way they've been taught. See, think about it. The way you would have been interpreted Jesus, if my Jesus walked in, you wouldn't have recognized it. It's so unique that everybody has their own perspective on how it is. God can't walks in, but God is there. And when I remember as a Baptist, it's God's everywhere. Well, yeah, God is, because God is going to be bringing everybody to that perspective of what they would recognize. And how I know that is because one day I was standing in and watching a sunrise because I had a farm. And I heard a beautiful voice that came to the ear, and it said, I painted that for you. And I thought, well, that is the truth, because God would literally be able to paint. Because what you see in the sunset, we can talk about sunrise or down, whatever, but your perspective will definitely, we can recognize it, that what we're talking about, but I can guarantee you what I see and you see, we will not see the same.
I love that you said that, because as soon as you said that, I got a lyric in my mind. There is a song by Depeche Mode, and the lyric goes, your own personal Jesus, and it just refrains over and over again. But you're making me have a second question, because
Sure.
earlier you said God is alive and plasmic. And
Yes.
therefore, Buddha and the archangel that you saw in the space don't exist because God was everything. So
Yeah.
how do you explain Jesus if you had that perspective with the Buddha and also with the archangel?
Well, what I was saying is, because I would not have recognized Buddha as a religious person. Okay. So if he did come into the room, I wouldn't have recognized that. But how I'm going to recognize is I knew about Archangel Michael, and I darn well knew about Jesus because I had a picture of him. So you are going to create exactly what you know and what you have recognized. Even if Buddha came in, I probably wouldn't have recognized, because I don't even think it would have frequency wise would even be able to come in, because I would not have been able to bring that frequency in.
So you're saying that whatever we're seeing is an illusion based on the creation of our own minds. So tell us what the reality is then.
Well, the reality is inside. That's all you've got is inside. It's an inside job. And what we've been trained is to be on the outside. So and then you have a collective. That's where we've got problems with collective, because then the collective all agree, this is who we are. This is what we do. This is who Jesus is. And so you find the collective that you feel comfortable in. But when you walk away from that collective and you have your own identity and experience, you don't have the same collective anymore. And what I think Jesus was trying to teach me is, it's an individual thing. It's a relationship That's what you're here to find, is that the relationship within you, because that is the true spirit of God that lies within. It's light, it's truth, it's your soul. Your soul is eternal. It will never, never die. But it has collected many lifetimes, not incarnation, but many lifetimes, many experiences. And sometimes when your soul is in your body and you've carried your flesh in, you've got your own stuff as well. So you're dealing with spiritual stuff and physical stuff. But we can get a misunderstanding what they are, because like cancer. Cancer could be where you had a wound in your soul a long time ago, but it needs to have it released. So it brings in cancer for this time for that body to heal. And we all worry about it because we go into fear, and there's only two emotions for me: fear, love. And that's all. That's all you got.
Yeah.
Once you understand that, that's where you understand the narrow road. That's why the Bible, when Jesus came into me, I have a big Bible, and it was a Catholic Bible, but he put his hands and it turned into water. And he said, dive in. There's a Bible within the Bible. Find it. The Bible is very simple. Everything. All you have to do is, you don't have to worry about the names. As a Baptist, I had to know the names. I had to know why, and that was more important than really what the lesson was. There's a lesson for everything. So why, that's what Jesus kept saying, follow the lessons. What did they learn? And one of them is Jacob and the angel. When his hip gets, he had to fight with himself. The angel is all you. You're fighting your own ego self, and you're fighting to, be free, but you don't even realize it exists. So when you bring everything into the wholeness of who you really are, you are the pure light. You don't have to fight anymore. There is no fight. It's just true experience. And that's how it works.
Okay. So when you had your 18 months with Jesus and you got to ask him all the questions you wanted to ask, I am
Yes.
curious because at the core of the Christian religion is the doctrine that says that the only way to go to heaven is through Jesus. And I'm curious to know if you asked about that or what your thoughts are on that after your near death experience.
Well, I knew that I was light, just like, because Jesus looked right at me and he turned into particles of light. And he said, all I am is light. I'm as much you as you are me. We are all one. So you've got, stop always holding me separate. I live here. The temple of God lies within you, or the kingdom of God, whatever you want to say, it's there. And I remember the first time when it really came into my beingness, I lit up. That's how you heal. You can't heal out here. You heal in here, which heals out here. But see, we've been so trained out here to heal. There's no prayer that you can sit down. Uh, like with my nephew, he it was real churchy, and I was too at one time. But he worried about going to hell every day. He'd call me up. He said, "Oh my God, I'm going to hell." I said, "First of all, let me explain something to you. Hell is already here. You don't have to die to be in hell." I said, "I work with people all over the world, and they're in hell. They certainly aren't in." And I said, "And I have worked with the very, very rich, is very, very poor." I said, "They all have their own personal hell because they have made that their choice." And he said, "Choice?" I said, "Oh, honey, choice is what you got." And I remember a choice came to me. There was a beautiful voice that came in, and it said, "Choice, CHOICE." And I thought, wow, that's a big choice. It said, "You think you're having a choice, but you're reacting. Stop reacting. Make the choice, yes or no." That's all in the Bible. Bible says all you need is yes or no. We speak too much words. We think too much. Yes or no. That's all you need. And that's how I was
Mm.
trying. Yes or
There
no.
we go. I like that. Well, Virginia, this has been a very interesting conversation, and I love what you've shared. And I'm going to guess that people who are watching will want to connect with you in some way. Is there a way that they can do that?
I think I gave that to you. My website is on there. What I want you to know is how to heal yourself. That would be incorrect for me to heal you because I don't know what you need. Your soul knows what you need. So you got to go and learn how to work with your soul. That is the relationship you came down here. That's the spark of God that you are. So with the more you can connect to that, the more you will heal in that. That's what I
Okay.
do.
Wonderful. Well, I'll put your website address down in the show notes so that people who want to find you can find you right there.
Okay.
Virginia, thank you so much for coming on the show, for being vulnerable because you shared a lot about yourself and your life before you had your near death experience. And thank you so much for what you are doing to help wake up the collective. It is so needed right now.
Yes, it is. And thank you. And thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Yes, and thank you, everybody, for watching. Next up, check out this playlist of other NDE interviews. Please like and subscribe. It really helps this channel to grow so I can bring you more content. Thank you for watching. I'm so glad you're here.